One voice in the crowd, one moment of silence before a serve, and suddenly the calm focus of one of tennis' most composed champions completely breaks. Jannik Sinner stopped mid-match, turned around, and confronted someone sitting just a few feet behind him. The entire stadium froze, and within seconds, thousands of fans inside Stadium 1 started booing. But here's the strange part. The man everyone thought was responsible might not have been the heckler at all, and the real story behind this Indian Wells incident might actually say a lot about the pressure modern tennis players face when thousands of eyes and phones are watching their every move, because what looked like a simple crowd interaction quickly turned into one of the most talked about moments of the tournament. Let's break down exactly what happened. Jannik Sinner walked onto court that night carrying enormous expectations. The Italian star, now firmly established among the elite of the sport, had become one of the faces of the new generation of tennis. Calm, calculated, and rarely emotional on court, Sinner has built his reputation around laser focus and quiet intensity. That's why what happened during his fourth-round match caught everyone by surprise. His opponent, Joao Fonseca, wasn't supposed to make this easy. At just 19 years old, Fonseca had already started building a reputation as one of the most exciting young players on tour. Aggressive baseline power, fearless shot-making, a mentality that refuses to back down from big moments. Many fans had already begun whispering that Fonseca might eventually become part of tennis's next great rivalry era, and on this night, he looked ready to prove it. The match itself was tight from the very beginning. Both players traded powerful rallies, testing each other from the baseline and pushing the pace higher with every game. Fonseca wasn't intimidated by Sinner's status or ranking. In fact, he looked energized by the moment, and by the time the first set reached its closing stages, the tension inside Stadium 1 was obvious. Sinner was serving at 5-6. One slip could hand the set to the teenager, and just as Sinner prepared to serve, something unusual happened. A voice came from directly behind him. At first, it might have sounded like a casual comment, but the timing couldn't have been worse. The moment a tennis player begins their service motion is sacred territory. Crowd noise drops, movement stops. Everyone understands the unspoken rule. You stay quiet, except this time someone didn't. Sinner stopped. He didn't hit the serve. Instead, he slowly turned around and walked toward the front row. From the broadcast angle, it was clear he wasn't just glancing back. He was addressing someone directly. Chair umpire Greg Allensworth immediately noticed the situation unfolding and leaned forward in his chair. Then he climbed down onto the court. The crowd, sensing tension, began reacting instantly. Some fans started booing. Others tried to figure out exactly what had happened, and suddenly, the match had completely paused. Allensworth approached the area where Sinner was pointing and calmly tried to restore order. He addressed the group of spectators near the baseline. His message was simple. If you're going to sit that close to the court, you have to respect the players and stay quiet during points. He told them that if there was talking during serves, it needed to stop immediately. Meanwhile, Sinner walked back toward the baseline, and in typical Sinner fashion, he downplayed the moment. He told the umpire everything was fine, just a small word, but the brief interruption had already left its mark. The stadium had gone from intense match tension to full drama in seconds, and social media quickly exploded with clips of the confrontation. At first, many viewers believed they had identified the fan responsible. One man sitting directly behind Sinner appeared prominently in the video. Within hours, his face was circulating online, except there was one big problem. According to the man himself, he wasn't the heckler. His name is Nicholas Novak, and he happens to be an Olympic skier. Novak had been sitting in the front row that night, directly in the section Sinner turned toward. But shortly after the clips began circulating online, Novak jumped onto social media to clarify something. He insisted he wasn't the person interrupting the match. In fact, he said the heckling came from the person sitting right next to him. His message online was blunt but also a little humorous. He wrote that he was not heckling Sinner, and then added something that tennis fans quickly found amusing. He said he was actually a supporter of Sinner. He joked that he was a Sinner, meaning a fan of the Italian star. And according to Novak, the real Heckler wasn't even trying to cause trouble. Instead, Novak claimed the guy kept talking and asking questions during the match, almost pretending he didn't understand that he was disrupting play. Novak later described the situation as stressful. From his perspective, he knew someone nearby was causing problems, but he also knew the cameras might point at him. And that's exactly what happened. The internet quickly jumped to conclusions, which is something that tends to happen whenever a dramatic moment unfolds during a major sporting event. But the most important part of the story wasn't the heckler, it was how Sinner responded after the interruption. Because when the match resumed, the Italian had to immediately lock back into competition mode. He was still serving at 5-6 in the first set. Lose focus for even a few seconds, and the set could slip away. Sinner held his serve. That forced a tiebreak, but Fonseca didn't slow down. The young Brazilian stormed ahead in the breaker and built a commanding 6-3 lead. 3 set points, against the world number 2, in a stadium full of fans now buzzing after the confrontation. For many players, that moment could easily become the turning point where everything falls apart. But Sinner showed exactly why he's considered one of the most mentally tough competitors in tennis. Point by point, he fought back, saving one set point, then another, then another. The tension inside Stadium 1 reached another level. Every rally felt like a battle, and eventually Sinner flipped the entire momentum of the tiebreak. He won at 8-6, one of the most dramatic escapes of the match, and the match itself still wasn't finished. The second set brought another twist. Sinner looked ready to close things out when he stepped up to serve for the match. But Fonseca refused to go away. The teenager broke Sinner to love. Just like that, the match was wide open again. Another tiebreak was needed, but once again, Sinner delivered when it mattered most. He stayed calm, played the bigger points with confidence, and closed out the match in straight sets. 7-6. 7-6. A battle from start to finish. And when the handshake came at the net, there was mutual respect between both players. Because despite the interruption, despite the tension, the match had showcased something exciting for tennis fans. A glimpse of the sport's future. After the match, Sinner was asked about Fonseca, and his response was interesting. Rather than focusing on the drama with the crowd, he talked about the young Brazilian's potential. Sinner praised Fonseca's fearless approach. He highlighted the aggressive style that allows him to go for big shots without hesitation. And he mentioned something that experienced champions often look for in rising stars: mentality. According to Sinner, Fonseca already has a strong competitive mindset, and that's often the hardest quality for young players to develop. Sinner also noted that Fonseca seems grounded and humble off the court, which might be just as important for a player trying to navigate the pressure of the professional tour. Then Sinner made a broader point. He said players like Fonseca, along with other young talents like Lerner Tien, are good for the sport. They bring energy, they bring new rivalries, and they push the established stars to keep improving. That's something tennis desperately needs right now, because the sport is entering a new era. For more than a decade, tennis was dominated by legendary names, players who shaped the history of the game and set records that might stand for generations. But every era eventually gives way to the next. And right now, we're watching that transition happen in real time. Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz have already become two of the biggest stars of this new generation. Their rivalry has the potential to define the next chapter of men's tennis. But the interesting thing is that the next wave is already forming behind them. Fonseca, Lerner Tien, and several other young players are beginning to knock on the door. That's why this match mattered. It wasn't just a fourth-round contest at Indian Wells. It was a preview of where the sport might be heading. And in some ways, the heckling incident actually highlighted another reality of modern tennis. Players today face constant pressure from the environment around them. Crowds are louder, fans are closer to the court, and every moment can instantly become viral online. One fan talking during a serve can suddenly become a worldwide clip within minutes, and that puts players in a difficult position. Do you ignore the distraction and risk losing focus? Or do you confront it and risk creating controversy? Sinner chose the middle ground. He addressed the situation quickly, then moved on, and the way he handled the rest of the match probably says more about him than the confrontation itself. Because mental resilience is what separates good players from great ones. The ability to reset after chaos. The ability to step back to the baseline and execute under pressure. And Sinner did exactly that. Now here's something interesting to think about. Tennis has always had a complicated relationship with crowds. Unlike team sports where noise is constant, tennis depends on silence during points. That creates moments where even a single voice can break the rhythm. And when matches take place in massive stadiums, maintaining that silence becomes harder, especially when passionate fans are sitting just a few feet away from the action. Indian Wells is famous for its electric atmosphere. Many players call it the fifth Grand Slam because of the scale and energy of the event. But that same closeness between fans and players can occasionally create moments like this one. Still, it's important to remember that most spectators follow the rules. They respect the players, and they want to see great tennis, which is exactly what they got that night. 2. Tie breaks, momentum swings, and a teenager pushing one of the best players in the world to the limit. For Sinner, the victory meant another step forward in the tournament. For Fonseca, the performance likely earned even more respect from fans and analysts, and for the fans inside the stadium, it became one of those unpredictable sports moments people talk about long after the match ends. But there's still one lingering question. What happens the next time something like this occurs? As tennis continues to grow globally, tournaments are attracting bigger audiences and more intense atmospheres. Players will inevitably face situations where crowd behavior crosses the line. How they handle those moments will shape the culture of the sport moving forward. Some players might ignore it, others might react emotionally, but Sinner's response in this case was measured. He spoke up, then got back to business, and judging by the final scoreline, it worked. Now we want to hear from you. If you were in Sinner's position, would you confront a fan who was talking during your serve, or would you try to ignore it and stay focused on the match? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments, because moments like this always spark debate among tennis fans, and sometimes those debates reveal just how passionate the tennis community really is. That's what makes following the sport so much fun. The rivalries, the personalities, and the unexpected moments that remind us anything can happen once the match begins. And if you enjoy deep dives into tennis drama, rising stars, and the biggest stories shaping the sport, make sure you stick with RedDust Report, because we're just getting started.